Hear ye, loyal serfs and valiant knights of the mortal realms. Today we are going to feast on the new Battletome, Flesh Eater Courts. That's right, you got your 4th edition Battletome, and seated at the high table of AoS Coach's stream is the Baron of the Banquet, the one and only Walter the Badger Brock. Walter has done incredibly well. He has earned his seat at this table by doing 23rd LVO, like 400 players, Warzone, doing incredibly well in the Atlanta scene. And before we get into the preview and we get Walter's thoughts, as always, Games Workshop sent me the book. They also sent me the Falconer, which is actually quite a cool model. I know it's in plastic right now. I can't wait to actually get into it. I really like the aesthetics of the High Falconer. But Games Workshop obviously did send this to me in advance. They won't get to see this video as always. If you want to help the channel, and you are going to buy the model, the book, or any of your hobby, come help us down on the links below. You've got Element Games in the UK, Warp 5 Minis in the USA, and Element Games in Australia. Or you can support us on Patreon or YouTube members for as little as a cup of coffee. Walter, g'day. Welcome to the Grand Delusion. What do you think? Like, what are your thoughts? Obviously, you've done incredibly well with Flesh Eater Courts. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of changes here and a lot of fundamental changes. So good news, you haven't lost any units. And when I say changes, they're not bad changes, but there is going to be some different ways of looking at your army. Walter, I think it's fair to say that Flesh Eater Courts still feels and looks and acts like Flesh Eater Courts. It's not a fundamental redesign, but the way that you approach the army is going to be very different. Pass it over to you. Give me the intro, and what's your first thoughts?
So starting off, I really love the changes. I think they did a really good job of changing the depth of the army while taking away a lot of the bookkeeping. Spoiler to no one, deed points, as we know, are now gone, and its bookkeeping is gone, but they still keep the flavor of everything, and everything still functions fairly similar to before. I'm incredibly excited for this army.
I'll be honest. So I have been a side Flesh Eater Courts player for a while. So here's the little story. When I went to Warhammer World in 1st edition, I remember I played Cities of Sigmar before Cities was Cities. I went to Warhammer World and bought 4 of the old Start collecting boxes where you got like the ghouls, the flayers, obviously a Terrorgeist, Zombie Dragon, 4 boxes because like in Australian dollars it was basically 2 for 1. And I got obsessed with the Royal Menagerie, and I love the old Royal Menagerie. So I have always been this Flesh Eater Courts side person. Never actually took them to a tournament, but I've always loved them and I've played them at RTTs. And reading this book, I feel really inspired. Like I'm actually reading this going, I would love to get these actually onto the table. So for you Noble Deeds people, if you're really passionate about it, I think you'll find some new flavor. There's hints of like 2nd edition and 1st edition Flesh Eater Courts here, but it's still very Flesh Eater Courts. So anyway, before I bring up the slides, what's your favorite thing that you've noticed, whether it's a change, whether it's the new unit, whether it is like what's your favorite thing that you got to experience so far?
I think my favorite thing so far has been the ability that they can now play around with teleports. A lot of their teleports before were bringing units back, but now they have a lot more ways to pick things up, put them down, and then do things after they teleport. It just adds this whole extra layer and depth to everything that they can do.
Yeah. I don't even know what my favorite is. There's actually a lot of cool things. I'm going to be honest. All right, I'm going to say the bad one first, because it's a weird one. We were talking about it before we started. Is that the Vargulf is now a beast? Now, like narratively, I love it. Like hero wise, like he's kind of Smash Bat has kind of gone down a little bit. But narratively, I love the idea.
Absolutely. Just a little crazy beast running around, doing everything, smashing things up, running away. He doesn't care who his boss is. He's just there for fun.
Unfortunately, it does mean he lost the hero, and he's not an infantry hero anymore. It's a beast, but I think it might unlock some interesting things. But anyway, look, let's open this present up and actually look at what has changed. I do also have points. I can't actually show you the points on screen. You will need to watch out for Warhammer Community, but I can absolutely talk about them on stream as well. So we'll talk about the new Falconer. We'll talk about any of the key changes. Some things have gone up, some things have gone down, but it makes actually complete sense because when I get to the War Scroll changes, I've actually got 4 pages of War Scroll changes. Usually I can condense it into to 2. I think Nighthawk was 3. This is 4, but there's a lot of extra flavor being added, and especially in the hero space. So there's a whole bunch of changes here at a battle trait section. So I'm going to I'll walk through what we've got, and then Walter can tell us about what's changed and what's missing and maybe some considerations. So the biggest and first change, let's go from left to right, is the Kingdom Deluded. So once per turn, start of any turn, you must use this ability at the start of each turn. If it is the first turn of the battle, pick a delusion from these battle traits, or, unless otherwise specified, from the War Scroll of friendly units on the battlefield. If it's not the first turn, make a D6. Cool. So we're playing around with a delusion mechanic. You have 2 on your battle traits. You also then have, on a lot of your heroes, if not all of your heroes, they have delusions as well. I'll keep going, and then I'll pass it to Brock. Oh, Walter. So you roll your D6 unless it's turn 1. If your delusion roll is 1 or 2, you must pick a different delusion to the one that you picked last turn. On a 3 to a 4, you must pick the same delusion as the one you picked last turn, even if it's on the War Scroll of a unit that's been destroyed. On a 5 to a 6, you must pick a delusion like it was the first turn. For the rest of the turn, you believe the delusion you picked. Alrighty. And first and foremost, there's 2 delusions. You can see the glorious Banquet, and you can also see the Splendid Pageant. So the Splendid Pageant, while you believe this delusion, each time a friendly Flesh Eater Courts unit wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Flesh Eater Courts hero uses a run ability, you can run, if you roll a 1 to a 3, it counts as a 4. And while a friendly Flesh Eater Courts infantry hero is within the combat range of a friendly Flesh Eater Courts infantry unit that has 5 or more models, that hero is not visible to enemy units more than 6 inches away. Alternatively, the second delusion that everyone has access to is the Glorious Banquet. So both of those were passive, by the way, and while you believe this delusion, add 1 to the hit rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Flesh Eater Courts units that charged in the same turn, while they are wholly within 12 inches of friendly Flesh Eater Courts heroes. I'm going to pause for a second. Walter, thoughts?
So I'm first of all super happy that delusions are back and they're not completely attached to Ustron. And then comparing to 3rd edition, where you could build around 1, the delusions now, because you're on a table and you're forced to roll after the first one, it means that you can't build around one specific delusion to sit all the time. So you're going to want to build around like 2 or maybe 3 delusions and like plan around that. The other cool fact is that since it's every turn, you can try to incorporate defensive delusions for your opponent's turn and then offensive delusions and utility delusions for your own turn. So it adds a lot of really cool depth and flexibility that you can do with Flesh Eater Courts. It's kind of crazy.
It is a very interesting mechanic, and to spoiler alert a little bit, and we'll talk about it more, Ustron also does have a bit more manipulation when it comes to your delusions as well. So a lot of your heroes have delusions. So it's very easy to see here, at minimum, probably the Splendid Pageant is your battle round 1 delusion. The Glorious Banquet is your battle round 2 delusion, assuming obviously the battlefield and how it's unfolding and blah, 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 blah. But what's really interesting is the delusion mechanic not being automatic, given that you've got to roll a 1 or a 2, a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, and the delusion may change, or what you've wanted, you don't get. So what does that mean to you, I guess? Like, does that mean that We're adding more heroes to give us more options in case we do roll that one. Or I feel like we've got to pick a different one. Like, are you building into having a couple of really good ones and then hoping for the 3 to a 4? And even if the hero's dead, you still get to use it. Like, how do you think about this?
So starting off, we at least know our first one's guaranteed, and we already have, as we see on here, a really good defensive first one that protects our heroes and gives us an auto 4-inch redeploy because it's a run ability, not a run roll. So then you can build the rest of the list for other delusions. We'll know coming further up that there are delusions that kind of have similar effects. You might be able to build with them. So if you are in a worst case situation where you are forced to switch, well, you have this other option that you can switch to. Now there will occasionally be bad instances where maybe you're on a defensive delusion and then you somehow through the course of the game roll a 3 and the 4, unfortunately, every time. That's unfortunately just what happens with dice. But I think that there's enough flexibility and enough options that you can kind of do whatever you want. And I'm really curious to see what people come up with in the future and try to how to manipulate these delusions in the future.
Yeah, there's a real interesting risk versus reward because, to your point, you may play a more defensive delusion as the battle is unfolding, and then in that critical moment, you are forced potentially with a dice roll to remain on that defensive. So does that mean that you pull back your plan? Does it mean that you maybe one turn earlier where you would normally have defense, hypothetically from turn 1 to 2, maybe you go for an offensive one in turn 2. It's a really interesting mechanic, and there's no outside of Ushoran, and I don't want to get too far ahead. It does bring a really interesting mechanic, but let's continue, mostly because there are other delusions we can talk about, and I think that will then really build some flavor behind this rule. But I love it, but there's going to be this element of unpredictability that you need to lean into. But you're excited. You like it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I love it. It's very Flesh Eater Courts. You've got Royal Blood, so once per turn, your hero phase, you can pick a number of friendly abhorrents to be the target, and they heal D3 each target. You then have Feeding Frenzy, once per battle, army, any combat phase. Pick a friendly Flesh Eater Courts hero in combat to be the target. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons, including companion. Love that. Weapons used by friendly Flesh Eater Courts units while they're wholly within 12 inches of the target. Finally, we have 2 movement phase pieces, one being Muster Guard, one being Summon Loyal Subjects. Muster Guard, once per turn, army, your movement phase. Pick any number of friendly nobles to be the targets. For each target, they can return three slain models to a friendly SERFS unit wholly within 12 inches. Return 1 slain model to a friendly knight unit wholly within 12 inches. The same unit cannot have models returned more than once per turn, so you can't stack multiple heroes on the same unit. And then you've got the ability to bring back a unit at half strength using the loyal subjects. It will cost you a command, and they will be set up wholly within 6 inches of a battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from an enemy. So that was obviously your serfs or your knights. What's changed? What have you lost? And what have you gained? And like, what's the impacts of some of these things that you've gained?
So the first thing that we have lost and gained from the last book is, as you see, these were all the abilities that were attached to noble deed points. So there's no more getting bad generation rolls with your noble deeds and, just falling short and not getting these benefits. Now you get these benefits all the time. But the unfortunate thing is, starting with Feeding Frenzy, Feeding Frenzy actually requires the hero to be in combat. So that means that you can't have, like, say, some hero with 6 that used to have 6 deed points in them sitting in the back, giving +1 attack to everyone. Now it's actually this massive risk versus reward type deal where you actually have to commit this hero, and that hero might have a super important delusion attached to them to put out the +1 attack. And then, since you're actually putting it out there, the opponent can swing back and potentially remove it. And it is a while within buff, so if you have an order of activation mistake, the opponent can still kill the hero and then snipe it out. So there is a lot of risk and reward attached to Feeding Frenzy. And then moving on to Mustard Guard, the text at the bottom means that you can't target multiple times, where in the last book, we could have one unit of 6 more begs and go, oh, you've left one more beg here in this unit. I'm going to knock down 6 deed points plus Lords of the Manor, and I'm going to throw 4 more begs back into that. You can't do that anymore. But again, on the bright side, now it splashes to everything. So if you have a bunch of little units, you can put one here, put one here, put one here, put one here. And then the Summon Loyal Subjects as well doesn't require feed points. It's just guaranteed value. So you just pick a dead unit, half strength, and put it on the table edge. That one probably has gained the most. At the top it says it costs 1 command point, so you are using some of your command point resources.
Yeah, it's you can clearly see they've decoupled from the noble deed points. On the plus side, as you said, it doesn't have how many times a Flesh Eater Gods player has been away from the thing they wanted to do by like 1 deed point. I've seen it happen so often. On the flip side, I've been in so many battles where that reinforced unit of knights or flayers or horrors, I've gotten down to like 1 model, maybe with like 1 or 2 health, and they just grown back. I'm like, I hate you guys so much. I hate you. So it's like always go hunt down the hero first. And I think what's interesting as well is it does give a really unique role to Usharan, but also your Ghoul King on Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon to trigger that Feeding Frenzy, where you're right, risk versus reward, you want to pull off Feeding Frenzy, but would your Courtier or some type of smaller hero, something under 10 health, is that going to be who you want to trigger? And there is a bit of risk versus reward, and do I need something with a larger base size to give you more opportunity to have Holy within 12? Do you want to have something that's going to be durable? Certainly considerations. I don't know what you're thinking, but I would probably start my army with Usharan or some type of Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. Or Zombie Dragon, but like that type of concept.
I adore the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, and we'll see further down. I think he has very much justified what he can do.
I was surprised because we obviously saw the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon go to Legends, and I didn't quite know what they were going to do to Ghoul King on Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon. And I'm like, look, they're clearly not going to replace it, so maybe they're going to make it unattractive by not giving it like a nice rules glow up. Like when we look at, if you're watching this as well at the same weekend as Nighthaunt, you'll notice that Hex Wraiths are not that great. Like they haven't actually, like Hex Wraiths, Walter doesn't know this because he hasn't seen the Nighthaunt book, but they didn't really do anything. Like they've actually kind of got a little bit backwards. So, but obviously like their infantry has gotten really good. I thought, okay, maybe they'll just leave the Terrorgeist, Zombie Dragon, Ghoul Kings, like just incentivize you to use the new stuff. No, actually, it's actually a really good glow up. So get excited about that one, especially for me and my 3 or 4 Terrorgeists and Ghoul Kings on Zombie Dragon. I love it. Again, a Raw Menagerie. That's what I was playing. Anyway, any final thoughts before we move to the battle formations?
Last thing that I didn't notice, but the Feeding Frenzy is any combat phase, so it will also require you to be in combat on their turn. So there are also instances where your opponent can avoid it and not let you get Feeding Frenzy up.
Yes, good call indeed. I like them. I like these rules. Yeah. All right. I think the complexity comes a little later as well. But I'm liking what I see so far. Your battle formations clearly have had a bit of a change as well. So I'm not going to read all these out. Like I'll be here till Christmas reading out every single rule, and I'll put you to sleep. But when you look at the 4 ones, right? So we've got the Knightly Echelon, Lords of the Manor, the Royal Hunt, and the Royal Menagerie. Yes. Which ones stand out for you? And are there particular list types that you think are going to start to form off the back of these formations?
Well, starting off with Royal Menagerie, I think that Royal Menagerie is actually pretty potent because on a 9+ strike first, it used to be you would give one thing strike first, but now it's potentially a lot of things. And then the one that really stands out to me is the Knightly Echelon, just the +1 rend with the Knight charges. That a lot of problems that Flesh Eater Courts have had in the past is that's rend 1 across the board, except for Ucheron's big stick and then a couple of Courtier units with their also holding weird sticks. What this lets them do is this helps alleviate their problem going into really high saves and fixes one of their actual problems. Lords of the Manor hasn't changed at all. It's the same thing. It's looking between Knightly Echelon and then what we're about to talk to with Royal Hunt. I think Lords of the Manor is fine, but it still only works when you're outside of combat, and Flesh Eater Courts want to be sitting in combat the entire time, so you're probably not going to get most of the value out of it. And then Royal Hunt is a SERFS where your SERFs all get a pile and move if they're in combat for it's pick every unit. Pick each SERFs unit in combat. So every SERF unit gets the pile in. Normally, for most of these, it's pick 3 units. This is just everybody gets to do it. So you can have a whole bunch of small units of Crypt Guard or MSU units, and they all pile in and they all start doing mortal wounds. It can add up pretty quick. And as we know, pile-ins at the end of turn also let you do some really board control shenanigans to lock your opponent in place and just gum up the board.
Yeah, you've obviously lost Cannibal Court, but that doesn't mean shite because you are not generating Noble Decoy, so it doesn't matter that one had to be completely replaced. Ghoul Patrol is an interesting one, given that they used to be able to give you the fight twice. Mm-hmm. That you do have this, I guess the Royal Hunt is probably replacing the Ghoul Patrol. So I don't know, like, do you think that for those players who were building into that surf type of build where they might have been using not that you saw a lot of it, but I know with Crypt Guard, you may have seen, like you did see sometimes some Crypt Guard spam. Do you think that they will see a loss with something like Ghoul Patrol versus the Royal Hunt? I personally love the tech of Royal Hunt.
I think the tech for Royal Hunt is really good. The unfortunate thing with Ghoul Patrol before is it only worked on Crypt. Yeah, it was just Crypt Ghouls. You could take very large units of Crypt Ghouls, and your opponent could charge at multiple angles, and you get the fight twice. And they did so much damage they'd pick up. This lets you take whatever SERFs you want and MSU them out, and it works on everything. And they can get all the nooks and crannies and all the weird places that people don't want them to go.
Even better. I mean, like, who wants to run a whole like massive couple of blocks of Crypt Ghouls anyway? I'm sure there's one or two crazy people. Walter's probably one of them with that smile. And also like the Knightly Echelon, I dig that. You know, if you want to keep running your Morbegs, amazing. If you want to run your Horrors and Flayers, or they're all Knights as well. Mm-hmm. Because there's been like I played a couple of games recently where people were leaning in Flayers. It's like they were playing into like coming back with the 4-up. Like, great, there wasn't really a lot of love to something like Flayers. This kind of plays nicely into it. Mm-hmm. Cool. I like it. I think all 4 of them are good. I don't think there's actually any bad ones, to be honest. All 4 of them. It just depends on your preference and style and what you want to build around. But I think we'll unpack this a little more. But so far, I think we're looking good.
Absolutely.
Sweet. All right. We've got our heroic traits. So we have 3 options. We've got the Stronger in Madness, we have Savage Beyond Reason, and we have Cruel Taskmaster. So Stronger in Madness, you can ignore the first damage points that would be allocated to this unit each phase. In addition, other than companion weapon abilities for attacks have no effect. That second part really the first part's like like in certain matchups, like let's say for example Slaves and Sons, where there's like not a lot of like charge damage or like there's not a lot of damage in all of the sequences. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, whatever. But the fact that you can turn off abilities like crit 2 hits, crit mortals, anti-X, whatever it might be, that's delicious. Savage Beyond Reason, passive ability, add 1 to the attack characteristic of this unit's melee weapons, including companion weapons. If it did not use the fight ability in the previous turn, Add 2 to the attack characteristics of those weapons instead, while this unit has not used a fight ability this battle. Finally, Cruel Taskmaster is your charge phase. Pick a friendly non-hero Flesh Eater Courts unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit to be the target. For the rest of the turn, you can reroll charge rolls for that target. This is very different, even though it's got the same names, because like Stronger in Madness would give you 2 extra health. Savage Beyond Reason would play around with Noble D points, and then Cruel Taskmaster would give you extra rallies. So the same names, but all 3 are very different rules. Walter, take it away.
So working it backwards, because I want to save what I think is my favorite for last. Cruel Taskmaster, before you could get the extra rally, and it comboed really well with Lords of the Manor. Because you could rally outside combat, you could bring back the extra model. It was used to be guaranteed when the index was around. It gave a lot of solid value, and then it was still solid afterwards because just extra rally dice. Your big Ushran was healing for a bunch of people trying to snipe out, and it was solid. This book wants to grind a little bit more, so you might be getting less value out of if you could have, but we'll see. The reroll charges has its own really solid place just to make charges more reliable. And it's essentially like a free CP on every one of your turns over the course of the game. So you can't really go wrong with it too much. Savage Beyond Reason. Plus, it's a little bit weird because for the +1 attack, it requires you to have not fought in the previous turn. So it's a little bit like Scarbrand, where if people keep throwing things at you, won't get it. But if they keep throwing things at you, you're going to just keep hitting them. On big stuff, because this also includes companions. So your Ghoul King on Terrorgeist and your Zombie Dragons are getting extra attacks, and then they're swinging way more. And then you stack that on top of Feeding Frenzy. So you're getting +2 to +3 attacks between all of that. And all of a sudden, this monster is just chomping everything into obliteration. And then for Stronger in Madness, I know the Deepkin players lost their armor. We took it. And I think this also has a very good natural home on a King on Zombie Dragon or Terrorgeist. And just to make it that much harder to kill, it will be able to stand in front of a lot of the scariest things and go, I don't care. I'm the boss. I'm here.
I had a couple of games last weekend with my Daughters of Cain with Krithusa, who has a similar ability, like turning off abilities outside of Companion. And the amount of times it grinded my opponents of not being able to do crit mortals, crit 2 hits, anti-infantry, any of those abilities like that are just really... Obviously, it doesn't turn off abilities, it turns off weapon abilities. Mm-hmm. That's really, really powerful. I love probably the first 2. Again, being somebody who loves his Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, I probably would lean into like Savage Beyond Reason, go hard early with the Feeding Frenzy, get you, as to you said, stack up the extra attacks, go ham. But there's also a lot of value in Stronger in Madness. Cruel Taskmaster is good, but probably I think the green and red are probably my favorites.
I agree too. The reroll charges from Cruel Taskmaster is solid if you don't want to include the Ghoul King or you don't have the heroes that can take the best advantage of it. So it's always a good option to have.
I probably like it a little more if it was like any charge phase, but I understand that seems to be reserved for bloody Soul Blight knights on steeds, so vampires on steeds. You got your 3 artifacts. Assuming there's nothing else you want to talk about on that one. I think there's solid picks. Although the charge one might be better for a hero that's sitting behind the scenes, to be fair as well. The first 2 are probably rewarding you to be closer in combat. The third one might be a bit more of a support piece one. You got your 3 artifacts. They have all changed. So you've got the Splintered Femur, where pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Roll a d3 on a 2-up. Pick one of the following, so you inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. Subtract 1 from the target's power level to a minimum of 0 until the start of your next turn, or if the target is a manifestation, it's banished. You've then got the Grizzly Pennant. Any combat phase, if this unit charged this turn, pick an enemy unit in combat with it to be the target, roll a dice. If the roll is greater than the target's control score or is a 6, the following effects apply until the rest of the turn. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for the target's combat attacks and add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by friendly units that target that enemy unit. Then you have the Charnel Vestments, where if this unit is not a priest, it has priest 1. If it was already a priest, add 1 to the chanting roll for that unit. If it's a wizard, it can't use a spell ability and a prayer ability in the same phase. That one is the same? That one's the same, right? Charnel Vestments is the same.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just the other two, because you've lost the Grim Garland and you've lost the head of the Gargant.
Mm-hmm. I like... the Splintered Femur is interesting. I think the other two personally outshine it, but I think it has its uses. Mostly because of the banish. Flesh Eater Courts don't have the greatest action economy, and so it can let you banish, which I think it has some cool niche uses, but I don't think you're gonna see it most compared to the others. Charnel Vestments, as we know, has always been solid. Just having an extra priest rolling around, giving you extra prayers, so you can have 2 priests if you want, and they bounce between each other, setting up their god bucks and then spending them and cashing them out, so that way you can always keep whatever prayer you want up at all times. The Grizzly Pendant, I think, is the most interesting because it reminds me of Doom Dominions from 3rd edition Soulblight, where you would basically stick it on the Vampire Lord on the Zombie Dragon, and then whatever he was in combat with, your stuff got +1 to wound. This functions, what I feel is very similar, where the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist or your Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon is going to fly forward, pick something to apply the +1 to hit, and then your stuff is going to go and then get the benefits, because Flesh Eater Courts don't have a whole lot of ways to get +1 to hit. They do have the Delusion, as we saw earlier, but as we know, it's not super reliable. This adds a level of reliability, and then the -1 to hit is also very nice, so that way if he's like tagging 2 units and he applies the -1 to hit here, he can go and swing something else, and stacking on top of the no weapon abilities from the artifact previously, he's actually really durable.
Yeah, I would agree. Grizzly Pendant and Charnel Investments are probably my 2 favorites. Obviously, if you're playing into I'm going to use that from now on, God Bucks. I love that. I've never heard that. I'm going to use that from now on. If you're playing into the priests and you've got a good prayer law, I've always been a fan of the prayer law. Whether you want to increase the prayer law or you want to access the prayer law, Channel Investment, love it. But Grizzly Pennant is definitely probably the one that stands out for me, the way I like to play. Splintered Femur is not bad, but the fact that you're picking your 1 artifact on a D3 and you don't get that guarantee just makes the other 2 look so much better.
Okay.
So like you roll a D3. I'm the type of idiot that always rolls a 1 or a 2.
Yeah.
Like I suck at D3 rolls. So like for me, I'm like, the time that I really need this thing, I'm probably not going to need it. I'm not going to roll it. That's just my dice rolling.
Yeah.
So for me, anything I'm guaranteed or I get multiple times, like not like a once per battle, I always lean into. But all 3 of them are decent.
Yeah.
Spell Lore. So we have Deranged Transformation, Charnel Feast, and we have Miasma of Madness, which is, let me just triple check. So all 3 of them are the same names. Did you notice any changes? I actually forget this one too.
So Deranged is the same.
Deranged.
It's actually it's worded a little bit differently. Because it affects infantry and cavalry, it used to say just non-monsters, so it actually can't go on things that don't have the infantry or cavalry keyword now. Charnel Feast.
No, I'm looking at it does on the old one. It does say infantry or cavalry. Pick a friendly infantry.
Okay, my bad.
No. That's there's a lot of changes here, folks. So bear with us. There is a lot of changes. Yeah, I think it's the same. It's casting value of 6. It's a +2 move, +1 to wound. Yeah, it looks the same, and it's the unlimited one as well. So that looks like it hasn't changed.
Yep. Charnel Feast looks the same. Miasma Madness is the one that's changed. It used to be an interesting Yahtzee roll that got you a bunch of debuffs into the opponent, and it went off of a 5. Now it's you pick an enemy unit, and every one they roll to hit, they take a mortal back, and it goes off on a 7, which is really solid into things that have a lot of attacks, like Daughters of Cain and Night Haunt.
I'm just having a quick look at Channel Feast. It looks like it's the same rule. The wording has changed. So like when you look at the old, no, like it's basically the same ability, right? So the way you look at the current rule, it's you pick your wizard, you then pick an enemy unit within 18, blah, 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 do some damage. Then you pick a friendly Flesh-Eater Court's infantry within 6 of the target, and then you can return a slain model. Very similar rules. It's just that the way you declare and the effect is they just made some tweaks. So basically it's the same rule, just tweaks.
The big thing I actually just noticed is it's only targets Surf for the friendly unit, where before you could target Crypt Horrors and or Crypt Flares, and it would revive them because this ability just revives models, but now it only brings back Surfs.
Yeah. Because it used to be infantry, now it's specifically calling out Surfs. And then we talked Miasma, didn't we? Or am I having a delusion that we did? That this one has changed. Miasma
it absolutely has. Yeah, we just talked about that.
Sweet. So I was just re-looking at the rules of Deranged Transformation. That one's a significant one, actually. And you can see the casting value is reflected. It's gone from a 5 to a 7.
Mm-hmm.
You have lost some things. Like there was 3 options on this one. I'll be honest, I don't remember this being cast too often. I don't. The old version, old Miasma.
Yeah, it wasn't cast a lot because of the Yahtzee mechanic attached to it. Because the 5 was reliable, but you still had to. It was a random roll on top of a random roll. You didn't know what you're getting, so you're just like, I'm going to Deranged Transformation, Charnel Feast, and cast Manifestations, and do everything else that's not Miasma.
Yeah, the new Miasma is solid. As you said, it's kind of like the Sisters of Slaughter with their buckler kind of ability. Really reward you against units that have like a lot of attacks. But even ones who have like a couple, like every one is still valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. All right. And then we have the prayer law. This prayer law, this changed a lot, I think. If I remember correctly, all 3 of them have changed, right? Because you got excommunication, charnel conviction, and the Summer King's favor. You previously had Summer King's favor. It's a different wording. Charnel conviction, actually, I think is the same. Let's break through one, but it's very similar, if not the same. Let's start with excommunication. This is definitely a brand new one because you used to have your unlimited used to be the Blessed Feast.
Mm-hmm.
So the excommunication, do your prayer things, 18 inches. That's very generous. That's actually really good. Until the start of your next turn, ignore positive modifiers to save rolls for the target. Obviously picking an enemy unit. If it was a 10+, ward rolls cannot be made for that target unit as well. That's delicious. It's turning off wards.
It's amazing. Range 18 on top of it, the base value being a 4 and then going to a 10 is also really solid, because if you just want the base value, you don't have to sit here fishing for random 5s. Like how I went back earlier and said, like, they had a problem going into high armor saves because everything was Rend 1. On top of, having access to, if you do a Knights build and you have the +1 Rend on charge, you have this on top of it too. Now you're going into a 3-up save. They can't all out defense because they have this, and then you're an extra Rend. So now you're Rend 1 Knights go to Rend 2, and now the opponent's saving on 5s instead of them all out defensing and saving on 3s because you were Rend 1 and didn't have this. And then turning off wards is also really big into certain matchups. There's a lot of things in the game now that are showing up with 4-up wards, and being able to turn off 4-up wards just makes your damage that much tastier.
Yeah. Yeah, even like there's one battle plan at the moment where if you are the underdog on turn 2 and turn 4, you get +1 to wards. So, being able to shut off wards, great into like your Nurgle, great into so Nighthorn again, spoiler for those who are not watching it right now. Nighthorn are now flat across the board, 5 up ward. Their armor save did go down, but their ward save did go up. So again, that's awesome. So great for that particular matchup. So big win there. Excommunication, love that, and it's unlimited too. Channel Conviction. Start your turn. Ward 5 up. If it's a royal, you can need extra target. Very similar.
Yeah. It might have been range 18 before, if I recall.
Yes, it was. It was range 18, wholly within. It's now 12. It was casting value 5. It is gone to casting value 4. Yeah. So the ability is similar, where you give the target a 5-up ward. If you roll a 10+, you get another unit with a 5-up ward. So that ability is there, but yeah, the range has gone down a little.
It means the biggest thing is, even though I went down so it's more reliable, which is great. It used to be you'd stick the Cardinal in the throne, and then because it's range 18, you just had this massive 18-inch circle around him that said, I don't really care where you are. I'm giving all of this stuff a 5-up ward.
And I think you could chain it as well. We used to be able to pick another friendly flesh-eater cause unit wholly within 18 inches of the target. So correct me if I'm wrong, anyway, it's not there anymore. It's a little easier, but you've got to have a little bit more skin in the game to get Channel Conviction off.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, the one that got completely rewritten is the Summer King's Favor. Chanting value 5. Pick a friendly flesh eater called Priest to chant, as always. Then pick a visible Feck hero wholly within 12 inches. Make your chanting roll. Love that extra line. You cannot pick Nagash to be the target of this prayer. Oh, poor old Nagy. So what do you get for it? Resolve the effects of the Renowned Might below. If the chanting roll is a 10+, then you can have Renowned Might or Righteous Tenacity. So Renowned Might is add 1 to the damage characteristic of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. And then with the 10 up, you get the Tenacity, which is the target can have 2 fight abilities this turn. After the first fight is used, however, the second fight is strike last. So, I think kind of cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of second edition Flesh Eater Courts players are going to look at this and think way back to when their Terror Guys could fight twice, and this it does require the 10-up cast to get, but your Terror Guys can fight twice again. This does also mean that Ushiran can fight twice. Again, it does require the 10-up. It can be hard to get sometimes, but when it goes off, it can be very scary. And anyone who played Flesh Eater Courts way back when knows how scary that can be. Even the +1 damage is also just really solid on, especially a hero like Ushiran, because none of his weapons are companion weapons. So even if you don't get it, you're at least getting some form of extra value out of that. But I think most of the people are going to use this to fish for that 10 and make their heroes go boom.
Yeah, they're going for the magical intervention. They're going to be spending the CP to get up to that. Maybe it triggers off with the feeding frenzy as well. If you really need to rip down into something, then you need the fighting twice. Very, very powerful. Obviously the old one was more around noble deeds, and yeah. Anyway, you don't need that mechanic anymore. Not huge. Prayer law, solid. Anything else you want to add to this?
I don't think so. This prayer looks really good.
All 3 of them are valuable, and I think that's the key, right? Like, the prayer laws have always been great. They're still great. Yes, you did a minor change on the Channel Conviction, but I think all 3 now you've got more utility on these prayers. Here we go. The 4 pages of changes. We're not going to read these out word for word. I might quickly go over, and let's get like the TRDL version of this, but obviously feel free to pause it and we'll go from there. So Nagash, Nagash is Nagash. Like, we don't have to talk about that. Not many people are running Nagash. If you do, you know what you're doing. Well done. Usharan. Let's talk Usharan. Anything here that's changed? And by the way, there may be some other changes, folks. I've tried my best to compare the wall scrolls, but this is what I've noticed. Anything here in particular that really stands out for you when it comes to Usharan? And maybe the high level question for everyone now is anything that's either impactful as in really good, things that maybe we used to really love that's no longer in existence, or maybe anything that's kind of worth noting where there's a tweak or a modification. Again, not have to go every single line, but when you look at Usharan, what stands out for you?
So first of all is his delusion ability, where he used to just pick a delusion. Now, since we're at the delusion's base, he just modifies the dice roll. Unfortunately, if you roll a 1 on the table you're forced to roll, you're still going to have to switch. But what he does at least let you do is if you roll a 3 or 4, you can bump it to a 2 or a 5, which means he always lets you switch. And because of that, you can build your list around 2 delusions specifically, and say you on your turn you want a defensive delusion, or on their turn you want a defensive delusion, and on your turn you want an offensive. He guarantees that flip back and forth. His own delusion is really defensive. It's also kind of decent offensive because it gives you better run rolls and charges. The big benefit is he subtracts from opponents' runs, charges, and gives your SERFs +1 Ren. So now your ghouls are Ren 2, your crit guard are Ren 2. It just makes it that much scary to get into. And the Glimpse of Delusion thing is he can't force big units to start whacking things. He only forces big things to whack.
Yeah, so that one, as a Gargan player, I have been victim to many times where my big Gargan has fought my other Gargan. I am now immune to that. Yay! But outside of that, Usharan, especially when you look at the Epicenter of Delusion and the One True King abilities, they're really powerful. And maybe the question I've got for you is, does this make Usharan an auto-include? And just looking at the points, his points are similar. So points may change by the end of, like, by the time I record and by the time it's uploaded, there may be some tweaks. But just know that he's about 10 points right now, different to 10 points less than what he is currently.
He's incredibly good. He gives you a guaranteed game plan, and he is incredibly solid. I don't think he is an auto include. I think there are builds in this book where you can get away without needing to take him. You just have to have a plan with your delusions and what you're doing with it. And there's a couple of delusions that have very good overlap to where you can, despite you having to flip back and forth, you can get very similar benefits without having to lose too much.
I think he's as close to an auto include as you can get. Like A tier, very, very, very good. Unless you're building your game plan around the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist Zombie Dragon, or as you said, a unique build. But I can see a lot of lists, especially in the early, once you forget this for the first time, I can see people wanting more control of their delusions and starting with Usharan. Now, you might break away like 3 or 6 months later and realize you don't need it as much, but I could see a lot of lists starting with Usharan. Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. Oh, I love this model. I love this. Walter, talk to me.
All right, this man got a massive glow up. His guaranteed 6 mortals thing is gone. It's just crit mortals. But I think his job profile is still the same with the D6 damage. I don't see anything in here that's...
It is. The Fanged Maw?
Yeah.
It's D3 plus 3.
Oh, yeah, that's very scary.
It's D3 plus 3. The Death Shriek is still D6. The Terrorgeist Fanged Maw, crit mortal, 3 attacks, 4s, 2s, 2 rend for D3 plus 3. So more consistency. Minimum 4.
The Rampage, the Wicked Predator, is very scary because let me double check this real quick. Pick enemy units for each champion standard. Yeah, so you pick an enemy unit, and for each champion, standard bearer, musician. So if people reinforce this, you're getting more of them. You're actually hunting down specific things in units. You add more text to the talons up to 10, as it says. Unfortunately, though, those all must attack that enemy unit, but you're getting a lot more attacks on your Royal Terrorgeist. And then his Delusion on top of this puts up a 12-inch bubble of +1 attack to your companion weapon. So that's affecting himself. That is affecting other Terrorgeists, other zombie dragons. That's also affecting the mounts on the Morbegs. Combo this with the artifact that gives you either +1 or +2 attacks and Feeding Frenzy. You're getting +4 attacks on your Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon Jaws. Those things are munching like it's dinner time. And then the Ferocious Hunger, as we saw, that got rewritten. Pick an enemy hero in combat. 3-up.
On a 3-up, it +1 attack for the companion melee weapons for the rest of the turn.
They get the they score crits on 5s.
It's so we were talking about Usharan being as close to a auto include. I think the thing that really is the arm wrestle, like the actual strong counter, is if you're building into the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. I think the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is a viable replacement for Usharan. I don't see a world where you are running both. I think, look, you obviously can. Like, I'm not saying you can't do it, but when you start looking at the points, your Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is 350, your Usharan is 450, so you're almost at 1,000 points at that particular point, and then you don't have a lot of bodies. So you may struggle, you may do battle tactics and things like that. You definitely can, but I think you are probably starting with one or the two in most situations.
I agree. The Ghoul King and Royal Terrorgeist with Usharan does have a very high opportunity cost, and I agree. You don't get a lot of stuff. I think this guy in a Royal Menagerie list is very scary, and I think Royal Menagerie is back on the menu.
I think it is. I absolutely think it is. And I was having a look at Terrorgeist. Terrorgeist is 230. So, like, I could see absolutely you having at least a Ghoul King on Terrorgeist and at least one Terrorgeist, at least. But to your point, even like if you want to run more Beg Knights, I really like the idea of running more Beg Knights in partnership, and you could run like those 2 blocks of 6, or even for horrors. I think there could be some interesting play, although you don't get to tap into the companion stuff as much. So both of these are really good units. Really good.
Yes.
Speaking of the Terrorgeist, you've got your generic Terrorgeist. Again, it's the same, right? So your Fanged Maw change from the Gaping Maw, the Fanged crit hits, and the Wicked Predator. So just rinse and repeat. Your Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon. So pass it over to you. The Draconic Jaws did improve, and you've now gained yourself a new Delusion.
The Delusion, I think, is one of my favorite ones. And when I was talking about overlap, I think there's another one that overlaps with this very well, that when you're forced to switch between. And this one gives your Knights who are within 12 of them +2 to charge. So now your Crypt Horrors are getting +2 to charge, your Crypt Flayers are getting +2 to charge, and your Morbegs are getting +2 to charge. That's a lot of very scary units. And then when you put them in the +1 Rend subfaction, now they're reliably applying their +1 Rend, and they're getting in there, they're mulching things up. I think this guy is, as we saw with the artifacts, he's a really good choice to hold all of those things, and I think you can build a list around this man as well. He's not the absolute murder machine that the Royal Terrorgeist is, and he's not the reliable support piece that Usharan is. He's a really solid thing that if you have a game plan around it, you can make it work.
And it never was. Like the Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon was more of the utility version, and obviously Ghoul King on Terrorgeist was all like just go kill. I think what I really like now is that Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon always felt like a lesser Terrorgeist Ghoul King. Now it feels like there's a very specific paths, right? You've got your Zombie Dragon Ghoul King, who is definitely playing more into the Knights. You've got the aggro, maybe Monster Mash Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. And then you've obviously got utility Usharan, especially playing with the Delusions. I think there are 3 clear paths. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And again, you don't have to start all 3. You absolutely could play with the Horde and a bunch of small heroes. But I think these 3 will play very well into all of the battle traits we spoke about a little earlier. Anything else? Anything else from you on this one?
No, I didn't mention, but it also gives monsters +2 to charge, which can also be nice if you want to do a World Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon, have those 2 delusions to bounce between, so your monsters are always getting something. That's about it.
Yeah. I don't know if I would take both. I don't know. If it's me personally.
It'd probably be too many points. Where you could probably like, for the same points of a zombie looking a zombie dragon, you take like a World Terrorgeist and a half.
And that's exactly my point was going to be, is that you could take an extra hero, obviously on Zombie Dragon, but you almost get almost two is like 1.5. So, and I would always rather Gulking on Terrorgeist plus two Terrorgeists over 1/1. They're different roles. Same deal with your Zombie Dragon as well. Obviously, they've gained actually, I'm going to call this one out. I think this is important, although not that important, but it's worth calling out. So while the Draconic Jaws have improved, you did lose Vantage Point, which was the deep strike teleport, like the deployment onto the battlefield outside of 9. So you can't do that anymore. Though you've now got to deploy your Zombie Dragon on the table because you've lost Vantage Point, but you do have a tweak on Loathsome Descent. It's now called On Rotten Wings, but it is now a once per turn army your movement phase ability. So you can remove the unit from the battlefield and set it up again more than 9 inches. So you just can't deploy it in reserve. It has to go onto the battlefield, but it still has the ability to be moving around. Yeah. Not that I think anyone was really building behind that strategy. It's just worth calling out.
I think it probably has some good niche uses, like some scoring things, get some very annoying places. Its space is really big, so it can be really hard to fit into a lot of places, but if people leave the opening, you can take the advantage.
Yeah. The Grand Justice Gourmet, anything you'd call that here?
So this man's been very much reworked. He used to, pick a list of 4 things and apply it. Now he just on a 3-up. Let me just double check. The target has strike last while is within combat of any court heroes and any serfs or knights. So he basically he gives you fight last, but you still have to have something in combat with it. And it has to specifically be heroes, serfs, and knights. So if you take like a Red's Renown or something like that, they're not going to be fight last. You actually have to put Flesh Eater Core stuff in their face. The Delusion I really like. The timing and setting it up is weird because it requires a hero to be hurt that turn, and because of the timing you picking your delusion, it happens to start a turn. So the only opportunity you have to hurt yourself before selecting this is if you rolled a 1 on a place of power. And then you also don't have a lot of reliable ways to hurt yourself, so that actually involves you throwing your characters in, and then it also means your small characters have to live, which means you probably have like a big character to put this on. It feels like it requires a lot of hoops, but if you can set it up, you can blow things out of the water, because an extra point of damage on like a massive unit of ghouls or large unit of Crypt Guard with their massive amount of attacks is just doubling their output, and it can hurt a lot. It's just, setting it up is going to be very hard.
Yeah, I would agree. Cool rule. But yes, there's a few loopholes that is like, is it really worth going through those hoops? Page 2, we're still on heroes. Abhorrent Archregent. So we did have some minor reductions here, so the health went down, and it's only Wizard 1. It used to be Wizard 2, right? If I remember correctly.
It did, yes.
Yeah. You've lost the War Scroll spell Carrion Call. You have gained the Musician's Play. Anything from you on this particular one?
I think he's fine. I think the main reason you take him is his Countless Servants ability. I think if a absolute massive gunline faction hits us, I think he'll have solid play with the -1 to hit. Delusion's not being reliable. He's probably wants to like slot into like an Usharon list as like the defensive delusion you want to sit in a lot of the time. But I don't think his delusion is something you want to build your army around.
No. Gosh, no. It's a nice to have rather than I'm building around it. Your abhorrent Ghoul King, again, same thing, had a change in its health. It's lost the unnatural speed ability. You had a few rewrites here. You had a rewrite on the Code of Honor, and you've gained the Vassal to Arms. Anything you'd call out?
The +1 run is nice, so now he matches the Scourge of Gyran Ghoul King. Unfortunately, the Scourge of Gyran Ghoul King I don't think gets Delusion with this. I would assume it'd probably call it out here. The Delusion that he brings is nice if you're doing if you're fighting a massive amount of heroes, but this is really dependent on the opponent's list, and if the opponent doesn't have a hero hammer type deal, you're not going to get as much value. So I don't think it's something to build around. I think 1 or 2 might be really solid because the Vassal at Arms lets him fight in tandem with SERFS, and +1 to wound is really, really strong. You do have access to Deranged Transformation, but now you can derange something. He goes in, and then he tandem fights with something else. So now this one character is effectively giving 2 things. +1 to wound, and then you also have, as you saw earlier, the Delusion for +1 to hit. So you're giving a lot of stuff +1 to wound, or +1 to hit and +1 to wound, and you're just buffing everything's output.
The Marrow Scroll's got a very big tweak. Well, not big tweak, but it's a very long tweak where you've had the King's Entreaty has been tweaked. You've also gained a new reaction called Infected. Do you feel that this has changed the role of the war Marrow Scroll or the value of the Marrow Scroll? Because it's always this really interesting mechanic where you're playing with this
Mm-hmm.
infecting ability. There's obviously a bunch of things. In the old version, you had to do it on a 3-up, so 2 out of 3 chances you'll likely get it in the charge phase. It used to be any charge phase. Now it's enemy charge phase, which is interesting as well.
I think I do think its role has drastically changed because on the 3-up, your opponent gets to decide. It used to be he got to decide. And the old Marrow Scroll was a massive deterrent from making your opponent go into you, because you could put him behind in a little nook or cranny to where if your opponent actually charged you, you would countercharge him and you'd roll the fight first. And then he would, if someone did engagement where they basically tagged everything with 1 unit, you could have turns where all 2,000 points of your army had fight first, and you just punish your opponent for trying to be too aggressive. This one, you're picking 1 unit, and your opponent gets to decide. It's either that unit gets fight last, or it's an effect that lasts the rest of the game, that basically every time you try to do commands, spells, prayers, all these non-core actions, not all of them, but the majority of them on a 5-up, you stop it. And so because your opponent gets to pick them, they're probably going to pick the infected option most times or not. The nice thing, though, is the Marrow Scroll Herald doesn't have to be within 3 anymore. So his role has changed a little bit. Mostly I see it for doing is the opponent's going to pick the infected, and it's going to stop them every once in a while from all defensing.
Yeah, I will say that the 6-inch aura now, as opposed to being in combat with it, it's easier to set up, but you are still relying on the 3-up, and the fact that your opponent gets to choose what they want to do. It was kind of reminds me of Slaanesh, where your opponents quickly started working out what was the one that would least impact them, and you then started to lose some of the value of the actual ability. So it's certainly interesting. It still does similar things, but I think it has changed enough to reconsider if you had it in your list. Cardinal.
So
lost. Yeah, go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Oration is gone, which was the deed points every turn. He gained a interesting, very niche delusion of you get the +2 to banishments, and then your stuff gets 4 ward against manifestations. It's actually interestingly niche. I think this only works in a couple of specific builds because, again, delusions aren't guaranteed most of the time unless you're in like Usharan. But adding +2 to banishments means that you can also banish your own stuff, and the Flesh-Eater Court's Fence is very important in some matchups for those game plans. And you saying, I'm going to have +2 to banish, lets you stop that. There's also, as we know, ways to teleport into the back of the board and things like that. And a lot of players will put up manifestations to block out these teleports and recursion. And now that you're having the +2 to banish, you can get rid of those pesky little things in the back. And again, this, because it's how the delusions work, it's not guaranteed to go into it. So you need to like have a specific plan with this delusion to get it when you need it. So I think this works very well with Ushiron, turning this on when you need it. And then he just gets +1 to pray when he's away from enemies, which is very nice, especially when we saw how solid that prayer lore was. This dude is just more reliably getting those prayers off.
And I think that's the value of the Cardinal. It's the insular contemplation. It's too early. Contemplation. Oh, I'm going to, anyway, I'm not
contemplations.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry.
That's all right. You know, when you say something wrong once and then you try to correct it and you just make it even worse. I was doing it on the Nighthaunt video I recorded the other day where I'm like, the Craven Throne Guard. I kept calling the Craven Guard Throne. I'm like, no, they're not thrones. They're Craven Throne Guards. I just kept repeating myself because I'm an idiot. But anyway, the +1 to chanting, I think, is the real value in the Cardinal. The banishing liturgy is a nice to have, and if you really need it, you use it. But having the +1 to chanting basically automatically, and you don't want this thing within 6 inches of enemies. So this is good.
Very.
Just seeing how much. Yeah. You've got your Gore Warden. I think they had some changes here. You've lost the Royal Hunting Party, but you have gained 3 new rules. You've got Lord of the Marches, Trespassers, and Defender of the Kingdoms. And I won't lie, I actually don't mind this new version of the Gore Warden. I don't know how you felt, but the role changed of the Gore Warden. It's no longer the Uber driver.
So I really like him. First of all, because he no longer has to either take Crypt Flayers or Crypt or Morbeg Knights. He just takes whatever's in his regiment with him. And then his teleport 6 away and he teleports also it's that. And his delusion is also really solid because it gives units you set up Holy Within 12 of them +2 to charge. You know who else gives us +2 to charge? The Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon. So now you have 2 delusions that are giving you +2 to charge that you can constantly swap between. So if you put knights with him, the Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon is giving them +2 to charge because they're knights. And then with him, if you're on that delusion, you're getting +2 to charge because you're setting them up that turn. So now you're 9 inches away, go to 7-inch charges. It's one of the double downs where you can bounce between. I think there's a lot of potential for a build around it.
Yes, I like that 1-2 punch if you want that reliability on the charge. Interesting that it is actually forcing, probably the first time we've seen where it's forced a regiment builds, where it's like you've got to pick the things in the regiment. So interesting there. Royal Decapitator is what? You've had a small change on the Executioner's entourage, and you've had a tweak on the Off With Your Head. Nice to have, certainly. Like, I'm not going to pick it purely for these rules. I don't know if you think differently. It's not fine.
It just means that he actually gets to use the ability before he dies, where before he did a wound, went all the way through the fight phase, and then if he lived, he could kill it. Now as he fights, and then he tries to kill.
I hate those rules. I think the High Gladiatrix has something similar. So if she doesn't, she dies. Like, oh, you lose your ability. All right, page 3. We've still got one more page to go. Strap in, folks. You can see that there is a lot of changes, but I think mostly so far they've been pretty positive changes. With a few exceptions, but mostly they've been good changes. This is the one that I kind of revealed at the start, which I thought was fascinating. Obviously, losing a hero sucks. I get it. And Smashbat, like, people love their Smashbat. But it's an interesting tweak. The points have decreased slightly, folks. It's 130 currently for the Vargulf Courtier. It is a beast as a relative keyword, and that's probably the key thing here is it's control score 1. It's lost the infantry hero keywords, and it's now considered a beast. You have lost the bounding strides, which I think made it fly or counters flying when it moves.
Yeah, it got like fly over terrain.
Yeah. Like it didn't fly,
or
counted. It was some type of like fly kind of mechanic. And then you've had his rewritten victory feasts. So if any models were slain this turn, he'll D6 this unit. Plus, if this unit's in combat, it can then immediately move 10 inches. It can move through combat ranges of enemy units, but it must end the move. Basically, you can't go in and get into combat with other units. So you're just getting increased movement.
Yep. The biggest thing is when he got the kill, it gave him retreat, and so people could pull out of combat with him, and he wouldn't get to move. This makes it so he'll always get to move, at least if they pull out of combat.
Yeah. How impactful do you think losing infantry hero and going to beast is going to be? And given that the points is only a minor points decrease, do you think that this becomes not good? Do you actually think that becoming a beast and less hero gives you a lot more flexibility because now you can put it into units rather than having to be a regiment choice?
I think it's a bit of a side grade. I think he probably lost more than he gained because he was a courtier. He could actually already slot in with other regiments. The biggest thing is
So yes, I can see that now.
Because since he's no longer here, he can't proc your Feeding Frenzy, he can't proc any of your revive abilities, he can't hold any of the enhancements. Though on the bright side, since he's not a hero, you're not losing the hero if he died, but you could also use his points to take a hero. I think there's some interesting uses because of he always gets the move. I think that's what you're building him for now.
Yeah. There was always, it felt like if you were running a heavy infantry, you didn't want to run like a Ushran or Ghoul King on mount. The Smash Bat was definitely what you'd build towards. Like you put the artifact, you put the command, you would do the thing. It feels like now you're putting that focus back on your Abhorrent Ghoul King or your Gore Warden or something else, which is a little squishier. Yeah, I'd probably say it's a side grade, maybe a downgrade. I think it's not a complete nerf. It's not a complete nerf, but I could also see in 3 or 6 months' time that points dropping down a little more. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if I like it at 130, maybe like 110 kind of deal. I don't know. I think it's a bit of a downgrade for the old courtier, unfortunately, Vargulf. I'm sorry. Crypt Guard. You've gained anti-charge, love that, and it's still got crit auto wounds, love that. You did lose the Armory of Madness, and you've gained an Elite Guardian's ability, which if this unit's in combat with an enemy that charged on a 3-up, it has strike first, but ward rolls cannot be made. That's that plays really well into the playstyle, especially for those who are using it to block like the bodyguard Ushran or something like, or your critical heroes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think so. It kept the 5-up board ability, so it still wants to be the bodyguard role. The Armory of Madness loss is a little unfortunate because there is some very cool interactions you can do with it. I think the Elite Guardians is also just really solid because Crypt Guard have a lot of output. They have a lot of attacks. As we saw, there are ways to give +1 to wound. There are ways to give +1 to hit. There are ways to just modify their output and up it. And so now you stick this in the middle. Maybe you put like 2 sides on each side. So as your opponent goes in, you countercharge with these guys and you roll a 3-up and you fight first. It's a 3-up. You're not always going to get it, but because it exists, your opponent has to think about it and they have to play around it. And it makes going into you that much harder.
It's a real deterrent. If you tell me that you have anti-charge, crit auto wound, and on a 3-up, you strike first, I reconsider if I take that charge or if I make that charge. So especially if I just make the charge and depending on what the situation is, but I like that a lot. I'm just having a look and the points didn't change. Points didn't change on the Crypt Guard.
So you can take a lot of them if you want.
Yeah. And for those who don't remember what the Armory of Madness is, it's you shut down commands. So that sucks. But I guess 3-up, I think you probably gained more than you lost there. Morbid Knights did lose the Shrieking Charge and the Predator's Pounce, but you did gain the Predatory Knight's ability, which is a once per turn, end of any turn. If they pick an enemy unit in combat, inflict D3 on the target. It's basically like a power through, kind of like a power through. It is not power through. It's kind of like a power through.
I think it's just a straight downgrade because it's end of enemy turn. So you can't do it on your turn either to like bounce them forward and do tactics and save you CP. I think there's still some really decent play you can do with it because, you know, you can use them as a screen. Your opponent goes into them, you go backwards, you rally, you revive, you go back in. But you're no longer getting this retreat and charge, go where I want to all the time thing. They're locked there unless your opponent gives you the opportunity to go in. They're still really solid. They have good damage output. They still have the best save out of Knights and Serfs and anything that's not a big monster. But they are not the auto includes that they were before, and as we know, the delusion for +1 save is also gone. So you're not armoring them up and sitting them in front of the opponent and watching you tank out of the world.
Yeah, I think while I'm a little sad that Morbeg did get a downgrade, I think overall it's a positive because they really overshone the flayers and horrors in that similar knight role, right? Like I remember our opponents, like they try to build into flayers or build into horrors, but it's like for the same points or very similar points, I'm just always better take Morbeg, and it was just unfortunately not very good for the book. So yes, it sucks. You lost the chip mortals. Yes, you had a tweak on the retreat and charge. It's probably overall more healthier for the book and hopefully allows the horrors and the flayers to also shine. Well, I guess we'll see in a second when we talk about the horrors. You did get an improvement with your crypt horrors with a melee is now rend 1. You did lose the royal approval and noble blood, but you did gain the holy blades of bone, which is any combat phase, pick an enemy unit in combat, roll 2 dice for each model in the unit, add 2 to the roll if they're cavalry, and then on a 5-up, they deal a mortal damage to the target.
These guys got a straight upgrade. They are significant, much better than they were before. The Rend 1, not requiring the opponent to be around, or not requiring your own characters to be around them, means that you can send them off on solo missions, do what you want. The units that revive in the back are getting the Rend 1, so now their damage is actually threatening, and then you stack that on top with the plus to Rend when you charge, so now they're Rend 2, whenever they charge, all the time, wherever they want to be on the board. And then the Holy Blades of Bone is an actually like really interesting ability that just ups their damage output. And Cav is still very, very popular, and that really deters Cav from wanting to go in, because even though it's 2 dice per model, so on a unit of 6 that's 12 dice, or a unit of 3 that's 6 dice, and that's enough to put down 1 to 2 Cav on average, which reduces the opponent's output, which makes these guys stick around a little bit longer. It's I really like where Crypt Horrors are sitting with how everything sits in this book.
Nice little flanking unit. Like you can see a world where you take maybe 2 units of 3, put them on flanks either way. They likely handle what they're going to be attacking on the flanks. If you really want to build into reinforced, yeah, you lost your noble blood, which healed you D3, but there's enough recursion to keep them around. And yeah, I really like that new ability. But they did slightly go up in points, an extra 20 points. So they're 260. So 160 now. 160. Your Crypt Infernal Courtier. We've had some tweaks here. We've got the mind shattering. How do I say that? Cacophony. Thank you. Your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit, set damage points allocated. Basically, you add +1 damage characteristic for your crypt flayers. That seems like it was around something similar. I'm pretty sure there was always like that 1-2 kind of combo between flayers and the infernal. But then, interestingly enough, you got these on winged steeds, which is a once per turn your movement. Pick a friendly crypt flayers unit. Use our leash, and we'll get to that in a second. This turn, wholly within 9. Then the target can immediately move D3, but it can't can't old Myrtle lust into combat.
I think this guy got an amazing night and day upgrade. The biggest weakness of this dude is his old shooting ability had to kill a model to imply the +1 damage. Now he just has to do a point of damage. That now, albeit this all has to go into what he shot, but this means that he can kill monster. This unit gets the damage buff against big single target entities. You're no longer having this guy fly around and hunt for small units to actually get a kill so everyone else can get the damage buff. On Winged Steeds is also amazing. Because, as we know, the Crypt Flayers can usually pick themselves up and drop themselves down. A little bit of a spoiler. You can pick themselves up and drop themselves down.
It's right there. It's right there. Literally the next page. So you've lost your escort courtier Crypt Flayers, but the liege ability, basically, if it's not in combat, remove from the battlefield, set it up again, wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Flesh Eater Gods hero, more than 9 inches. And now, to what Walter's going to say, we get the free D3 move after the setup.
So now you set them up. Your shooting gets a little bit more reliable now that your opponent. It's harder for your opponent to redeploy out of your range, and your charge gets that more reliable now. So now you're, instead of 9 inches, you're 8, 7, or 6. And then you combo that with the 2 delusions that we talked about earlier, because these are knights and these are being set up. Now, if you roll the 1 and you're the +2, when you teleport, you're just rolling a 6-inch charge.
Too good. Royal Beast Flayer did lose only one thing I noticed that changed, which is the loss of the Royal Flaymaster ability, which was that on a D3 2-up, you do some mortals, and then against any monsters or beasts, you would also add 1 to the amount of damage inflicted if the target is a beast or a monster. So you lost a little bit of hitting power there. Obviously, a straight downgrade there. There's no upside. It's just straight nerf.
I think, unfortunately, it had to happen with the sub-faction for the SERFS pylon, because with a unit of 10 Royal Beast Flayers then does the funny 2d3 mortal wounds, and their points before were 100, and a whole bunch of units of those doing 2d3 mortal wounds each just adds up really fast, and I think it unfortunately had to happen, or else that could be running around everywhere.
They haven't changed. It hasn't changed. Finally on this page, and then we have one more page to go, we might do the last page fast, is the Charnel Throne has had a rewrite of the rule of all-day survey. If this terrain feature has a steward, pick a visible and a friendly non-hero Flesh Eater Cause unit to be the target. That target can move D3. If the target was set up this turn, it can move D6 instead. It cannot move in combat during that move.
This is really good. Extra movement is always great. And to stack on top of with the teleport list, you have the Gore Warden. He takes whatever he puts in Deep Strike with him. And then you have the Crypt Flayers with their Infernal Courtier doing their thing. And then you say you want to have your early game, you've skirmished, you've removed all their pieces that are screening you out, and then you say, I want to have a go turn. And then the Gore Warden teleports in. He brings in a unit of Crypt Horrors with him. The Crypt Infernal Courtier brings the Crypt Flayers up around. He moves them D3, and then the Charnel Throne moves the Horrors up. And now you've got these 2 units that are right in your opponent's face, rolling really low numbers requirement on the charge.
Mate, I'm playing checkers, you're playing 4D chess. Here I am, Simple Destruction Anthony, going, I can move D3 my Ghoul King on Terrorgeist at the start to basically make it a 15-inch first move. Boom, look at you. That's some solid tweaks there. That's nice. It is visible though, so just being mindful in this particular season where we have a lot more obscuring. But yeah, this is nice. Straight upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. Last page. Luckily, it's a short one. It's your manifestation. So the barricade went down. I think the casting value was 7.
Barricade was a 5 before.
It was a 5. Sorry, yes. I think no. One of them went down. One of them went up. Yeah, the Corpse Mare Stampede went down from a 7 to a 6, but the barricade went from a 5 to a 6. Yeah, so Barricade has gotten an improvement with the banishments, now banishment 8, and then the casting value has tweaked. No rule change that I noticed. The Corpsemare Stampede is an interesting one. So its melee profile did improve. There is a whole bunch of text there when it comes to the trampling underfoot. So I'll let you all read it out in your own time. And it has changed as well. So you're now wholly within 12 inches of the caster rather than 9 inches, wholly within 9 inches when you set it up. So, I'd probably say that's an improvement. And then the Chalice has probably been a downgrade. I remember first when I was reading it, I'm like, oh, the Chalice. So you've lost the Fill the Chalice and the Overflowing Gore, but you have Draught of Delusion, which pick an enemy unit within 6 inches of the manifestation to be the target, roll a dice. On a 3-up, your opponent must pick one of the following effects to apply to the end of the turn, rest of the turn. Drink deep from the chalice. Other than companion abilities, weapon abilities for attacks have no effect. Or turn aside combat attacks that target enemy score crit hits on an unmodified roll of 5-up. Let me retract that. That's still pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
Let me retract that previous statement. I'm thinking of something else. That's good.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's on a 3-up, but that effect is very good.
You lost a lot of the obviously the role of the chalice. That's what I was thinking. The role of the chalice has changed because of the loss of the Fill of the Chalice and the Overflowing Gore and how that used to play out on the battlefield. Anyway, any comments from yourself on all three?
Barricade is kind of weird side grade. It going to an 8 makes it also a little bit weird because we also like to banish in our turn, so now it makes it that much harder for us to banish, but at least sticks around more reliably in those situations. The Corpsemare Stampede is amazing. The fact that it gets an extra d6 every turn now, and it gets an extra amount of attacks equals to that movement. So if it sits around for a bunch of turns, it can get like 5d6, or every round it can get like 5d6 extra attacks. This thing actually hurts now. It goes places, and it can snipe heroes if it wants to later into the game. The Chalice as...
Funny. Can I just interrupt really quickly? I can't wait for somebody to just ignore this bunch of horses, and then like you're slowly building up, adding 1d6 for the roll for every battle round, these manifestations on the battlefield and not being banished. So going up to 3d6, 4d6, like get it off turn 1 and just keep stacking it up. I think that's going to be madness.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, the Chalice, its role has changed. It's really solid. Your opponent unfortunately gets to pick, but those are both very good effects. So it's a pick your poison type deal.
Yeah. Either way, like you've got a horde of crypt ghouls, like being able to do unmodified 5-up crit hits would be incredible. Equally, like being able to turn off weapon abilities is also really good as well. So, yeah, you can really do some damage with the Chalice. All right, that is all the War Scroll changes. I don't know how long we've talked, but I feel like that's at least half an hour, if not 45 minutes. So if you stayed along this long, well done. You deserve yourself a delicious break, and that would take us to the new unit. Any final closing comments so far? Anything we've talked about, Walter? I know you just want to crack on and get into the Falconer.
I think the Flesh Eater Courts book is looking amazing. I think you touched on it earlier, especially talking about the Morbigs, where the internal balance of this book, I think it's very even. There's a lot of options, and I'm really excited to see what creative things people can come up with this book.
Yeah, I'll reinforce what I said at the start of the video, and that is there's a lot of changes in this book, but change isn't bad. And I think overall, like, yes, you lost some abilities and some things that you used to play around, but I think you've gained a lot more than you've lost. In fact, I'd probably say you've gained like 2 or 3 times X what you had. So the trade-off is obviously the delusions and I guess the reliability, but I think you're in a good spot. Like to a point where probably I may go pick up my Flesh Eater Courts again and bring back the Raw Menagerie. It's been a while.
Yes.
So I love the Raw Menagerie. It's my favorite. Back in the first edition, you had to take your Terrorgeists were not battle line, so I still had to fit in 3 battle line choices of ghouls. So it was like Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon, 3 Terrorgeists, and then it was like 3 units of 10 ghouls before they got forced to be units of 20. Anyway, OG. High Falconer, Felgryn, move of 6, save a ward of 6, 4-up save, control score 2, health of 5, has a shooting attack, and it has a melee attack. The shooting attack is the carrion flock, has shooting combat, 1 attack, d6 damage, although it's no rend and hits and wounds on 4s. And then you've got the talons, which are fine. 5 attacks, 3s, rend 1 for 2, but you're probably not taking this unit for its melee prowess. You got 3 abilities here. You have the Be My Eyes in your hero phase. By the way, the other unit, there's that like baby terrorgeist, baby bat thing. That is the gripe. So this unit's gripe is a token. If this unit's gripe is not on the battlefield, pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of this unit and is not in combat to the target. Place this unit's gripe next to the target. If the target is destroyed while this unit's gripe is next to it, remove this unit's gripe from the battlefield. Reminds me of the bloat toad in Seraphon. You've got the winged. Oh, you can say this word, Mister. I'm good at English.
I'm not even going to take a crack at this one, I think, but I'll say reconnoiter.
What the F? All right, the winged thing. I'm just going to triple check that I misspell that. That's horrible.
Reconnaissance.
Yeah, cool. Let's go with that for now. So while this unit's gripe is next to the enemy unit, ward rolls cannot be made for damage points inflicted on that enemy unit by combat attacks made by this unit and friendly SERF units. And then finally, Sir Felgryn is abroad. A passive ability, it's the Delusion, where while you believe this delusion, subtract 10 from the control score of enemy units while they are in combat with any friendly SERFs units or any friendly non-hero Flesh Eater Court monsters or beast units. And for the folks who... How much would you pay for this? You don't know the points. I'll tell you now. How much would you pay for this? And then I'll get your opinion.
I think he's 130.
Ooh, 120.
Ooh, that's really good.
120. And it allows you to have 0 to 1 monsters, any beasts, any serfs. And it also has the ability to be a sub-hero as a royal attendant, joining other regiments. So it doesn't have to be a roster choice. Now, what are your thoughts?
This man is amazing. He fits very naturally with any surf build. And this is probably where the best home that Vargos are going to sit in because their beasts and his delusion affects beasts. That delusion is very strong. Reducing enemy control by 10 is an insane number. There's not much in the game that can get higher than that or like have their way to modify above 10. So usually what they're debuffing goes all the way down to 1, and it's just I'm sitting on the circle, I have it now. And because he builds around serfs, if we think back to Usharan, his delusion gives +1 rend to your serfs for anti-charge. So I think he fits very well in like a planned game plan where he's affecting your serfs, Usharan's affecting your serfs, and then because he has the turn off ward, if you're like playing a game around turning off wards and you need to do stuff like that, he fits a similar role that you don't have to have a priest if you don't want to. And he can fit this role very well. I think he slots into a lot of builds very well, specifically built around Serfs because knights don't get the turn off ward benefit. I see a lot of potential with this guy.
Also, shout out to a 4+ save. I had to make sure that wasn't an error. Nope, because all of your smaller heroes are like saving on a 5-up. This is a 4-up, so. I mean, overall, for 120 points, this is pretty good, as you said, in a very surf kind of focused army. Love this gripe token mechanic and being able to turn off ward saves, and then you maybe apply the chalice as well, and maybe getting, crit 2, was it crit 2 hits? I can't remember what it was. It was
crits on 5.
Crits on 5. Crits on 5, that's right. Crits on 5s. If they happen to be silly enough to pick that or surf build, absolutely. Not build, not so much.
There is one unfortunate downside to him is that you only get to put a token up when there's not one. So if you put one up and you don't kill the unit and then the opponent boogies away with it, you don't get to put down a new one. You gotta go chase it down to get your token taken back so you can put a new one down.
So destroy all these next to it. Remove the growth from the battlefield. Good unit, fair points. I think good choice in a surf unit, surf build.
Mm-hmm.
Less so much in knights, less so much in like a royal menagerie. Alrighty. Any final thoughts before we power through these armies of renowned? Yeah, and there's 2.
Yep, I don't think so. Let's get cracking.
Oh, all right. And by the way, if people hung out this long, I should probably tell them that you've got some I should have told you this already. The regiments of renown, there's actually 2 regiments of renown, one being the Scarlet Jury, so allows you to take the Grand Justice with a Decapitator and some Crypt Guard. Nah. Oh, maybe it's okay. But maybe again for me, Destruction player. What's exciting is you can take a Royal Terrorgeist into a Nighthaunt, OBR, or Soulblight army. That's fun. Who doesn't want a Terrorgeist in their army? But what you also should know is that Nighthaunt allows you to take a black coach if you want to take a black coach. That's fun. Let's go straight into this. The night of the new summer court. So if we are taking a army of renown, you are sacrificing all of the rules we just spoke about because you are now trading up and taking these particular units. You've got to take Ushuran. Ushuran must be included in the army. You then can include any non-unique abhorrent, any nobles, any Vargulf courtiers, any knights. You cannot take your regiments of renown, but you can take an army of renown. So there's a whole bunch of rules here. I don't think I should read it because Walter will fall asleep on me. It is getting late in the East Coast. What was your initial thoughts? And feel free to pause the video at this particular point. It's clearly built around Ushuran. There's a whole bunch of cool abilities here so far. There is a second page. What's your initial thoughts?
So Ushuran's not the boss of this army. The first ability lets you select the banner, and as long as the banner is around, it's a 24-inch bubble of your stuff gets plus 10 to the control. That is the real boss of the army.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the only banner you can take in this list is a unit of Morbigs, but that banner is what you want to keep alive, because when he dies, your stuff also loses 5 OC, so everything basically just goes down to 1. But while he's around, he's the boss. Keep the banner alive, and it just makes it really hard for your opponent to take objectives from you, and it makes it really easy to take objectives from them. The Sire's Shadow, the once per game ability, it's basically the same thing as the Glotkin. It's a counter charge. Ushuran has to make the charge first. It's really good to just make your opponent second guess and like do some positioning stuff and make it really hard for them to get into you. Good duel. I think it's a really flavorful ability. You basically just go into a duel with the enemy general, and then you see who comes out on top at the end of it. And Knight's Vow is really cool. Unfortunately, it does require you to roll a 6. You could just not roll 6, but if you get the 6, one unit gets fight twice. It can be very niche and very good. It not being reliable means this probably isn't going to pop up a whole lot. I think it's got some really fun, some interesting abilities. The plus 10 OC looks really tasty.
Why would I run this army of renown over trading off my faction abilities? Is there anything that stands out for you without going to the other traits and things?
The big one is the 10 OC. You can MSU a lot of knights. And the Sire's Shadow is a lot of really cool control bits. I think it's mostly really fun. I think there's a couple of interesting things you can try to do with it that's going to really mess with your opponent's head. I don't know, because of how many moving pieces this has, I don't know if this list is great or not, but I could kind of see potential for it.
It's super techy. And here's the other rules, by the way. So there is 2 extra battle traits, as well as 1 heroic trait and 1 artifact. There's also a third page on this one. That's right. There's a spell law, a prayer law, and a manifestation. Too many rules on this one. I don't mind the ignore the first point of damage being allocated as a heroic trait. It's fine. Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong rules. That's the next one coming up, the Equinox Feast. You can subtract 1 from hit rolls. That's not bad. The heroic trait of being able to move 2d6 is good. Although, yeah, you can only have it on non-unique abhorrence and any nobles.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gawking on Terrorgeist and not nobles, are they?
They are abhorrents though.
Yes. Okay.
So
and they're not unique, and they're not unique.
Mm-hmm. And so between this, the artifact, I think this is one of the lists that you can get away with Usharon and a Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, because he has a 4-up ward while nothing else dead, so he's going to be, as the heroic trait says, he's going to be the tip of your lane. So he's going to be the first thing that goes in, moves 2d6, snipes something out, does a bunch of damage, sitting in the middle, being the absolute worst guy he can possibly be with a 4-up ward and trying to stay alive, while the rest of the list is moving up behind.
Yeah, and yeah, it's definitely the tip of the spear, and obviously you won't get Feeding Frenzy. You're trading that off.
Mm-hmm.
And also here you go. Here's your spells and your prayers. There's a lot of rules. It's a very, very techie one. You've kept your Deranged Transformation, the Miasma of Madness. You've kept the Excommunication, and you've got your Stampede. Or you go outside and take some universal prayers and spells. So it's fun. It's different. It's definitely not Blades of Khorne, Deathbringer spam. I think it's interesting. I think it's different.
I think the nicest thing is, like you said, it's different. It's got a unique flavor to it.
Yeah. And if for those people who are not using SERFs anyway, like if you're mostly sticking within these units, but you've got to have Usharan, that's the thing. Like if you want to break away from Usharan, it's not for you. But otherwise, it's not bad. I want to see it on the table, I think. There's a lot of moving parts on this one. Last one is going to be the other Army of Renown, which is the Equinox feats that I started accidentally reading to because I've got the Battletome open up on the wrong page. So this is focused around the High Falconer. So what was your read on this one?
I think this is another really interesting, flavorful one. It's built around SERFs and your foot heroes. I think the way it reads, it wants a bunch of MSU stuff, so you can probably do either MSU heroes, MSU SERFs, any type of mix of it, and they all kind of like, every round you get a different benefit. So the first one, your retreats get an extra d6, but the nice is every run you do gets progressively better. So if you're MSU, the first rolls, your runs can get like d6 plus 10 at the end there, and you're just sending units out to do things that you need to do. Second round is similar to where everybody gets impact mortals. It's very nice. It's a lot of damage adding up if you MSU everything out, and it's like you charge 10 units in, that's 10 d3 mortal wounds, although it's the bad d3. Round 3, you get a 6-inch pile in if the enemy unit contains any of the command units, which, as we know, movement is king in a lot of situations, so 6-inch pile in is really good. Round 4, a lot of healing, bringing models back, healing it's solid, just to like keep you topped off in the game. And around 5, your stuff gets 4-up ward when they're nearby 2 other units. So it's like once you're in the position you want to, this helps you lock down the game. I kind of wish this was in an earlier round, so that way it's just like as the fight happens, you're alive. But I also understand why they didn't do that, because that would be insane. This is like once if you solidified the win, this kind of keeps you there and holds to whatever advantage you have to try to lock your opponent out of what they can try to do. I think it's super flavorful.
Yeah, it's super odd with the different abilities over the different turns. So it's building up the sequence. But as you said, like the Equinox Parade, being able to get some ridiculous run rolls off the back of that then leads into maybe a double turn for you to then go in and charge. Should you go to the bottom of turn 1, take the top of turn 2, then go do a bunch of charging with some really advanced movement. This could be quite nice. It is fun. It's flavorful. It's different. Is it better? Are either of these better? I should go to the second page. Are either of these better than taking your Flesh Eater Court's general abilities? I don't know. I don't think these are definitely 2-3, 3-2 armies, maybe 4-1. I don't think any of them are busted. I don't think they're strong enough to take you over from your battle formations that you're able to get access to. But they're fun. They're different. They're interesting. They've got competitive rules. I I think for me, I don't think I'd run either of these, but I think they're interesting.
I think I'd run them at like a RTT at a fun event and like see how it does.
Sure. Yeah, play with your mates, play it at RTT, but maybe not taking it to a GT. All right, that is the Armies of Renown. We could have spent a lot more time. Look, most people, you probably maybe you've tapped out already with the amount of changes that we went through, but Walter, we've gone through a lot here. We've gone through, and again, the book should be hitting on the shelves, in about 2 weeks from this video going live. It should be going live simultaneously with Nighthaunt, unless anything changes. So go check that video out as well if you are a death connoisseur. Lots of interesting death changes on that one too. But if you are thinking about buying the book, grabbing, the Falconer, support the channel, do check out the affiliate partners below. Much appreciated. But closing thoughts. How are you feeling about FEC, and any final words of wisdom when it comes to what we know so far from the book?
I mentioned it before. I think the book is super diverse. You can get very creative with the builds you want to do. I think there's a lot of things you can try. I think there's a lot of builds that you're going to stumble into that don't actually work because they give you so many actually really good options. And I think it's going to take time for us to figure out what we think is the optimal path and what isn't. I think I'm just really excited to play this book. There's so many things I want to try, and as you said before, we could probably keep talking about this and talking about this. There's so many things.
What do you want to try? Don't leave the people hanging. What do you cook it up in the kitchen?
The first list I want to try is the teleporting Gore Warden with the zombie dragon. Just see how that works. I also really want to try like an Usharon surf list. I really want to play Royal Menagerie. I was not around during first edition, and I played Flesh Eater Courts at the tail end of second, so I didn't get to play the Royal Menagerie silliness. So I want to be able to try that out.
Just to prove my street cred. There you go. Original book. I remember reading this, going to England and going to Greece. OG Royal Menagerie. Man, I used to love this book. This is such a flavorful book. Where is it? Sorry, you got me down a rabbit hole. I blame you. Royal Menagerie. Where it is. Here it is. Royal Menagerie.
So beautiful.
I had to take Royal Menagerie consists of 3 or more Terrorgeist zombie dragons. Their ability forward my pretties. This is back in the day where you only had one command, and it was based on your general. There was no other command abilities. If your general is the abhorrent ghoul king in the hero phase, it could make 6-inch move, and any models from the Royal Menagerie within 15 could also move with it. And then you do a bunch of healing as well. So good. Anyway, you're going to play around with some Gore Warden teleporty shenanigans stuff. You're going to play around with Royal Menagerie. I think it's some real good stuff with the surf. I think you actually might have talked a little bit about the Falconer. I reckon there's something in it. I reckon for those surf lovers, I do think there's actually something within the Felgryn build. But also, I think people are going to run the Royal Menagerie. I can see it coming back. In fact, I might even run it this month at my next RTT. Because I got Daughters of Cain next weekend. I'm going to be actually, while this goes live, I'm actually playing Daughters of Cain right now at a weekend. I might go Royal Menagerie at my next RTT. But Walter, there's a lot of stuff we could talk about. I think we're both excited about this particular book. I'm very keen to play it out. I actually think it's a good amount of changes. I look forward to people playing around, tweaking their lists, thinking about how they break away from the noble deed points, how they start thinking about their delusions, where they start, what they start building towards, what are the combinations they're going to start tapping into. For you who may not be in the Discord, please come join us on the Discord. Link is down below, and I'm sure lots of people will be talking about Flesh Eater Courts. Any shout outs? Anyone you want to say hello to on the internet?
I want to say, first of all, hi, Mom. Thank you, Fred. You're an amazing human being, and I wouldn't be where I am in AoS without you, because you keep dragging me along in the competitive scene and don't let me sit still. I want to thank all the mid-table meddlers. You guys are amazing people to hang out with. I just want to thank the entire AoS community. All of you have been so open and accepting, and you have made this game and playing it so fun, and it is just the greatest.
You are a wonderful human being, and I take back anything that you just said about Fred, because he made me build 20 more Witch Elves and 10 Canary, and Canary break from their bases all the time. So, Fred, you owe me another shot of drink when I see you at the WCW. Walter, you have been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for helping us break down this book. I'm sure with plenty of games and repetition, we're going to learn more about the codes and more about the combinations and the play style. And there's going to be a lot to unpack here, so I'm sure we'll talk more in the near future. But thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the preview, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AoS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a double one on a spellcast.